Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. Not quite the final wrap-up for the Players' Championship. We got the weather. We got the tee times. We got the bets. We got the one and done. We got Underdog plays. We got DraftKings picks and an entire overview of the slate plus a Q&A towards the end. Now, I know a lot of people cannot attend this live show. So if you're listening to this in the podcast version or on demand, I am going live again on Wednesday evening for a pure Q&A. So if you got questions, tune in to Mayo Media Network at 7 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday evening. I'll be answering all of your questions then. And then if you have more questions, Tambo, you can check out James over on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel, who is going live directly after I'm done.
Love to hear it. Just hit 10K as well over there. So thank you for all the support out there. I know a ton of the Mayo Media Network people have come over, so we appreciate that. And excited to be here, Pat. I already saw the email. You were lobbying to take away the all caps from the players because it's only some of the players. We're still missing quite a few, but it should be good. I love this event every year.
I don't. I always lose at this event. Although I suppose that's not necessarily true. Two of the biggest outright wins I've ever had have been at the players. I hit Siwoo and I hit Martin Keimer. That's 2 hits in the past 11 years. And at the top last year, I had a big Brian Harman each way. Well, I had a big Brian Harman outright winning ticket, his top 8 cash, Hideki's top 8 cash. So it was a good week. It wasn't a great week, but I get destroyed on DraftKings at the players every single year. So I'm trying to, and this is what I wrote in the column, that I'm trying to pull a Costanza where if I think you're going to be bad, I think I'm just going to use you in my lineups.
And if you think you love someone and everybody else does too, you just don't use them.
Exactly.
And you don't try and predict the weather wave because 2 reasons. One, last time we did that, we got it horribly wrong. Well, we got it right, but there was a delay that pushed it to the opposite side. And then on top of it, I love the shout out to my guy, Alex Blickel, posted, this is a trend you'll see everywhere and why it's bullshit, basically. I just love that full post that he put out because all those things, there's always something more to it. The sample sizes aren't there. The one thing that does seem to hold true, though, from a DFS perspective when we get there is the chalk 7,900 and below. This is typically where that goes to die, and we'll probably build lineups accordingly this week. I think we should.
You can always jump around to the time codes, which are inserted after the show because we are doing this live with you good people. Smash the like right now if you are watching live and share it around on X. That gets you into a draw for $200. Any player's content that you see from me on X, formerly known as Twitter, this week, you retweet it, boom, you're in a draw for $200, giving away that winner on Monday's show with Feinberg. But I kind of think Rory's going to win now.
I got a feeling too. I actually think I think there's like 3 scenarios and none involve Scheffler, unfortunately, but I still, we'll talk about Scheffler, of course, but Rory's one that stood out. Xander, ugly week last week, but said he came through fully healthy. Obviously you could see that happening. And then Morikawa pulling a Xander from last year, another close call. Remember Xander after the first one? It was like, oh, he can't close, and then goes on to win 2 majors. This is not a major, like we said, but I could see Colin coming back again, even after last week and getting the job done. So feels like one of those 3 to me.
I kind of agree with you. So we'll get to the bets in a minute, and I have not finalized it. I'll probably finalize that in the newsletter and article post that I'll put out on Wednesday evening or even on the Q&A show because, I do want to talk it through with you, but I want to talk about the weather first. We said we don't want to try to predict it, but we're definitely going to talk about it. It doesn't seem like there's much of an advantage either way. Maybe the early AM, PM wave have maybe a slight advantage just because the wind is down a little bit right now as of Thursday morning, but it doesn't look like it's going to get crazy until Saturday and Sunday, which look insane.
Yeah. If anything, to be honest, I'm not, pushing either way that you have to do it, but I like the PMA. I'm better just because, one, I always like it from a mentality standpoint of going out and setting the tone on Friday morning, but Thursday morning looks much colder. And I think you'd still be fine. I don't really care about like the 7 to 8 miles per hour that it's a little bit up from 2 to 3 on Friday. That stuff doesn't matter at all. But the key, Pat, is going to be how can we predict to get the guys that go out Saturday morning and not Saturday afternoon? Because as of right now, that's where it looks like it gets spicy. About 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, it really starts to pick up both sustained up to 21 miles per hour sustained and gusts up to 33 to 39.
I'm seeing that too. So a lot of it has to do with the gusts. And this is what screwed people so much on Thursday at API, the guys that went out early. Yes, there was a lot of sustained wind, but the gusts were just all over the place. And at the Players, it's even more difficult to figure out because at least at API, you have the giant lake around the property. So you can feel the wind coming off of it and where it's going. And I know there's a lot of water, obviously, around TPC Sawgrass, but there's a lot of trees as well that sometimes when you hit the ball up, it's like, oh no. What's going on now? I did know there were 35-mile-per-hour gusts up there because there's nothing down here. In the morning on Saturday, it's 8 miles per hour sustained with gusts up to 25. That is such a huge range that it might screw up some of the players. But this reminds me a lot of the year that Justin Thomas won. If you recall, like he just snuck through the cut line and then he went out and put up a number on Saturday morning and then just got himself into the mix for Sunday. And obviously he ended up beating Bryson towards the end of that tournament in 2021. So I think that there is potential, at least from the betting angle, for adding one of the elite players live on Sunday morning if they have just snuck through and have one of those tee times. But as it pertains to DraftKings, as we're looking at the weather, I mean, just get your guys, see how many guys you can get through and like cross your fingers.
Yeah, for sure on that. I mean, it's jokes aside, but on Saturday, round 3 showdown, get fired up for it. It's going to be a fun one. We'll know kind of what we're doing there by the looks of it if it stays this way. And to your point, that's also for live betting. If you get a Scotty, or the chat's making fun of me because Sung JM, some of those guys that just sneak through typically and make the cut like that, they're the ones that can go out on a Saturday, set a number, and you could probably find some value there. But it just depends on who it is. And it's really hard to predict that. Obviously not going to be able to do that. So we'll build to get our lineups through. The key this week when we get to DraftKings later is going to be the 6 of 6, get guys through, and then hope that they have a chance to make it through over the weekend and find their way to the top that way.
Do you think this weekend weather allows for more random people to win because it's a variable that's somewhat unknown and you could just catch the right wave, be out at the right time, play a hole with a certain wind when the gusts are down versus being super high 20 minutes later, that there is a more narrow path like a triple digit winner this week?
Yeah, certainly possible based on how you just described that. I still have a hard time believing it just because it's still a hard course to get around. There's going to be somebody from that wave. It would be more to my thought process. It would be more of like what we just talked about, where it could be somebody that's you I think has no chance on Saturday morning. You're like, wow, they just made the cut. That sucks. These guys are at the top. They're killing it right now. And then you see someone make that Justin Thomas like move. But to me, Pat, it will be a Justin Thomas like player that does it and still finds their way over 2 full days of golf. So hard to see like a triple digit winner, but I definitely could see some of the value plays sneaking up there. And from a betting perspective, I still think it's going to be one of these guys up at the top, wherever they stand.
So I tend to agree with you on the outright betting card. That's why I still only have 3 names on my outright betting card. And I've tried to walk people through my process of like what's going on in my mind. I'm not trigger happy. I'm trigger hesitant right now to go in on someone. I'm trying to narrow down that list and figure out what I want to do. So the final bets right now are not the final bets. These are the bets that I have. The newsletter this evening should have all of the final stuff, if not the Q&A, and then I'll update the Twitter post that I do with all of the final ones. But I'm in on Ludwig at 19-1. I think that's a really good number. I actually boosted it up to 24 with a 30% boost, but not everyone has access to the boost. So the number is 19-1 on Ludwig. I really like Ludwig this week. I think he fits almost everything that you want. If you throw out the 2 weeks that he was sick, he has the right trend lines. Obviously, he has a win. He was top 10 in his debut last year, plays pretty well in the win. And I do think that his short game can persevere here versus some of the tournaments where it gets a little bit wonky from time to time. But even in the wind, he has enough distance, enough power to really hit it through if he wants to. And he has a lot of shots that he can play. Seb Straka, like the world, I'm on Sep. I got him at 60-1. He's down to 35-1 in some spots right now. Here's a quick tip, Tambo. I would not bet Seb Straka at 35-1.
Not interested. No. And the Ludwig thing, you went through all those extras and you didn't even mention the home course advantage.
Oh, does he live there now?
Yeah, that's his spot now. So he's going to be, I mean, that's what everybody's talking about is he's got that home course advantage. There is no, I remember back when Cam Smith was on the course and living there. So that was the setup there. So Ludwig has to win this week. So 19-1, you got to love it. And the boost even better.
I got Nick Taylor at 125-1 because I took the 8 places on that. He was as high as 165-1. He's now down to 100-1 as he is one of the more popular long shot bets of the week. But I'll take the 125 with the 8 places. I played top German, Matty Schmidt, over Steven Jager at even money. And I also like Schmidt for a top 40 as well at plus 270 or 275 for the plus 40. First round leaders right now. I did go to that morning, although as you mentioned, it's a little bit colder, but the wind should be down. I took Nick Taylor, who was a shot off the lead here a year ago at 80-1 with 5 places, and Tom Hoagie, who holds the course record from 2 years ago, playing awful golf at the moment, but just takes one round. He's 170-1 with 5 places. He's also a part of that morning wave right now. So for me, this is a pretty light card, Tambo, for the moment.
I love that you got Nick Taylor on there. You basically got Tommy Fleetwood at 165-1 instead of 28-1. So that's nice. A guy that actually wins on tour, a guy that beat Tommy Fleetwood in a playoff before, and a big number on him. I think he's going to get popular as today goes on because people keep mentioning him. And I know on DraftKings, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting spot for him. And just a guy that, to me, at 7,300 seems like a great option when we get to DraftKings later.
So this is where I'm stuck at right now. I'm trying to narrow down who I want to take at the top of the board. Rory has slipped down to as low as 16-1 now in some places because it's Scheffler at 5.5 to 1. It's Morikawa at anywhere between 10 and 14 to 1. He has become the second favorite in this tournament. I think justifiably so with the way that he's playing. Coming off of last week, he's a very popular name, but no one wants a piece of Rory. This is really when Rory tends to do his best work, when people just think he sucks.
Agreed. And obviously, we know he can get it done around here. I think that's the interesting thing about Scheffler being back now. And if you, again, whatever people think about Scheffler, this, that, and the other, no matter what, based on last season, he's going to get these betting odds. And he is still Scotty Scheffler, so rightfully so. But it is giving some stuff to guys like McIlroy, Schauffele, Oberg, those guys. You're getting some bigger numbers on them. So when you're thinking of it from your perspective, like you said, 16-1 or whatever it is on Rory, I mean, that's 16 times he comes here. You got to think he's winning. So I'm fine with that if you want to roll that route and go that way.
It's really strange. I guess it's probably because a lot of people bet Rory last week. I didn't, so I'm not jaded by his 4th round performance. But when I put it out, it's like, anyone feeling Rory this week? I think of the 40 responses, one was, yeah, I'm in on Rory this week. Everyone else is like, he's a loser. He sucks. He can't win anymore. Like, dude won 5 weeks ago.
Correct. And it's also insane when people like the 4th round stuff. I see people bringing it into their process more or using it for betting or whatever it might be. People, again, I don't think people fully understand the 4th round stuff for both ways. Obviously, if someone's in contention and they fall back, that's just the way it goes. That's the variance of one round of golf. It's the same as when somebody has a really good first round going full Keegan, if you will, and then falling off the next round. It happens. But a lot of times in the 4th round, guys are literally just trying shit out, right? They're testing it for the next week. They're firing at pins because the money difference from 35K for last to 100K is not the be all end all for them, right? They're still professional golfers. They can make 100K any given week, if not up to $1 million or more when they're playing to win, right? So to me, the 4th round stuff just doesn't matter ever. And when we're talking about a guy like Rory McIlroy, there's nothing I care about less than that. That just means nothing to me.
And I do think that you can spin it both ways. I don't think a very negative final round is going, unless it's at a really easy course and you're just completely off. Like, that's the one thing I'd be somewhat worried about Morikawa was he had every chance to win at Bay Hill. And even just to identify the first 3 holes, his irons were just off. Like, there does seem to be something in his head at the moment that at least when he's winning or tied for the lead in one of these big tournaments or any tournament, honestly, on Sunday, that his irons get a little bit wonky. And if his irons get wonky, he's cooked, man. Like, the rest of his game, he needs to be the best in that in order to come through because his putter has just been shaky. I know he's going to put it together at some point, and he'll probably end up winning one of these tournaments by 4 strokes. But at this point in time, I'd prefer, much like Justin Thomas in a weird way, that they be out in the 4th, the last group, and know they have to go put up a number.
Yeah, that's part of the mindset factor that I was just mentioning. But I think with Morikawa, I mean, it's just such a different narrative. It just really, really, really reminds me of Xander last season. Almost similar timing, but not quite. But, in general here, it would be such a different narrative right now if Henley didn't chip in for eagle and maybe Morikawa goes on to win. Not saying he would have. Obviously, there's a butterfly effect to all of it. I'm just saying it was definitely possible. It was there for Morikawa to win. It just did not happen. If it did, though, there would have been a big change in tone versus, this. But I still think people love Morikawa this week, so it's not really that big of a deal either way.
They do love Morikawa. We're going to see him very highly owned on DraftKings. Obviously, he's passed Rory in the betting market, meaning people are flooding the market on Morikawa funds. So when I'm thinking about the top of the board for betting and I'm trying to narrow it down, I crossed off Scheffler. I'm just not going to plus 550. Like, no thanks. I didn't want to bet this number last year when he was winning every tournament, and kind of like Morikawa looked in the final round. Just overall with Scotty, he's still awesome. clearly. Like the tee to green game is all there. He missed so many short putts last week. We know the ball striking is there. So if he goes out and dominates, it's not going to surprise me whatsoever. I'm going to be sitting here being like, oh man, I should have just bet on Scheffler, and that should have been my only bet of the week. But he does look substantially different this year from his way better than everyone else performances the last 2 years, at least so far since returning from injury.
For sure. It's also how insane it is that's, we're talking about results. It's 11th, 3rd, 9th, and yes, a 25th. But the other three are pretty damn good results for anybody else. But because it's Scotty, it's horrible, right? Like, how are you not in the top three if not winning? That's how he has to look at it, and that's how we look at it. So it's just, that's what happens when you're coming off the Scotty Scheffler season we had last year, for sure.
And I don't think that's unfair for us to comment that way, because he's still the same odds as he was last year. So if we're comparing the two, this version of Scotty Scheffler in 2025 is not the same guy who walked into the Players in 2024. He was playing much better last year, and we were getting essentially the same odds. Now he's taken a little bit of a step back. Let's say he's 85% of what he was last year. Yes, he's still by far the best player in the field, but his odds are not reflecting that. He should be, let's say, 8-1, 9-1, and he's just not. That makes it very difficult to bet for me.
For sure. And that's, I said, for you guys, especially out there betting a bunch of, or looking for different options. I know you don't have a bunch of, but just in general, it's helpful to you because his odds are anchoring or buoying, whatever you want to look at it, being able to give you guys a much bigger number on some of these other options. And if you're already comfortable going to those options, you got to love that you're getting them at better prices just because of that.
Like, if you just really want to pound out the money, just bet Scotty top 10. Like, that seems like a very good bet.
Yeah, it seems like his floor these days. That's what I mean. Like, if he's horrible and he's coming 3rd, 9th, and 11th with 125th, that's the number there. Just hammer that.
When I went back and reviewed the Players, I went back and I watched every round from last year. I forgot how many, like, Scotty, obviously I remember the Scotty hole out from the middle of the fairway on number 4 for Eagle that kind of set off his round, but he was making putts on Sunday, and Wyndham Clark was not making putts on Sunday. Yeah. And people are like, oh yeah, I had Clark. He lost by a stroke. He lips out the putt on 18. He misses the 10-footer on number 16 by like that much, just a quarter inch. But then I went back and I watched the Friday round, and Wyndham Clark may have made 200 feet worth of putts.
Might have been more if I remember the stats. But yeah, I just saw this, reminded me on Full Swing. Actually, on Netflix, was watching. They showed the Wyndham Clark, the letdown there of that lip out where he thought it was in. He kind of did like the knee stomp, like it was going in, and then was like, oh, it didn't go in. So that sucked. But the Scotty stuff, that's just kind of been also, that's another note. Like, even those 3rd, 9ths, and 11ths we just hit on, you just reminded me of all the highlights of his bunker hole outs. And Scotty's so good for Eagle from here, from the fairway. Like, this guy just gets it all, man. So really hard to contend with a guy like that when he can also make those shots. Even when he's having bad shots, he's able to turn it into a good hole or a great hole in some cases with some of these hole outs. That's just what Scotty's been doing. That's what Scotty does.
So again, to circle back to the elite guys in this field, if you're going to go up there, and that has been both the trend line at the Players for winners and in the elevated events. Like, Russell Henley just became the worst guy to win an elevated event so far this year. I believe the highest number on him was 45-1 last week. So just keep that in mind. So I'm not betting Scheffler. I'm not betting Morikawa at 13-1 right now. Rory's on the table. I've bet Ludwig. Then you get into this really weird tier of guys. And I think this is where I want to go potentially, unless I go with Rory. JT is as high as 33-1. Xander's 27 or 28, depending on where you look. Hideki's 27. Fleetwood's 27. Henley is 27. I'm just going to cross off Henley and Tommy Fleetwood from that list. I think that they're fine. I could see them both winning, but I don't think that they're in the category of the other guys that they're being mentioned around. So that whittles it down to Thomas, Xander, and Hideki. I don't like where Hideki's game has been since he won at Century. He's not driving the ball well. He's not hitting his irons well. He's really skating by with big time chipping performances. Maybe that works well in the wind on the weekend and he can surge. If there's like 100-1 on him going into the weekend, maybe that's the spot to take him. But I don't think that he wants to be on the level with these other two. And that just leaves Thomas or Xander. So would you rather bet Thomas and Xander for exactly the same amount of money and payout as one Rory McIlroy?
Yeah, I'll take 2-1 on that. I'll definitely take those two guys versus take Rory. So it's not 2 but you know what I'm saying? I'll take two guys over just Rory for the same odds and numbers, what you're talking about there.
And Xander could be an absolute dud in this situation. I liked what he did Sunday at Bay Hill, and his ball striking for the week was actually quite good. It was his chipping and putting that were an absolute failure through 3 rounds. And then on Sunday, he was playing by himself at Bay Hill. So he played the round in 2.5 hours or something crazy like that. So there was a bit less pressure on him. He can kind of go out and fire, but his chipping and putting were both very good on Sunday. He kind of, and I believe we've talked about this before, targeting guys the first week that they come back, that usually the biggest thing is their ball striking is usually pretty good because they've been able to work on that, but it's the feel around the greens, the chipping, the putting. You just can't simulate that on the range, on a simulator, wherever you are. You really have to get out there and do it. And I feel like maybe he played those 72 holes were enough for him to get his hands back.
I agree. And I've been actually considering him in one of them. It'll be the second week in a row where I texted Dad that I'm going to roll with Scotty Scheffler and then move off of him. But I think that there's a possibility here because I know Scotty Scheffler in one and done, which we'll go to shortly, is like 68%. But I think a lot of that, majority of that 68%, not majority, but a lot of it is going to show up this week. Playing the guy after 2 wins here, everything that looks there. I'm surprised, though, going back to it, Pat, that you didn't want the 2000 Players Champion, Hideki Matsuyama, if you remember.
Yeah, I don't like where his game is right now. I mean that,
remember the round?
I do remember the round. That is it's been brought up multiple times. Cuss was on the show this week, and he made. Did he make Hideki one of his picks? No, I can't remember. Let's see. Cuss picks were, yes, Hideki was his number 2 pick. He picked Scotty, Hideki, and Fitzpatrick as his 3 picks.
There you go. CK in the chat is just going through it. Crazy stat. Previous year's winner, highest finish is T5. No, it's not. It's Scotty. He won after the year he won. And then he realizes it like 4 messages later. Oh, wait, except for Scotty. Only player to ever win back-to-back. Yeah, it's it's happened very recently, the last 2 years. So the trends here are a bit insane. We talked about that off the top, but it is kind of nuts that a lot of the trends that get brought up are just bullshit. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the guy that played good over the last 90 days that once played good here before, that had like a top 33 in the last X amount of years. Like, no shit. That means they're a great golfer, and there's like 30 of those in the field. So that trend's garbage. That's what that means.
That's not necessarily true. There's not 30 guys. I mean, the trend might be garbage. I saw you're referring to the one I think that Ulrich put out.
Yeah, and I love Ulrich. He's the man. Jeff posted. I said, this is not a shot at Jeff. This is a take on the trends. He's just posted. I've been in the past gone and framed up these things to help others and said, you know what, I'm going to go find out who fits this and post it out. The list that year, I think, was like 15, 20 guys. I said 30, but you get what I'm saying. It's just, I've learned, and I've seen this a million times now. It doesn't matter. And for me, I don't really care. I'm just playing DFS. So I want to play DFS and focus on those trends and winning the game. But what do you got for the trend? What do you see?
Well, it's just based off Jeff's trends. At Golf Tips Checker was the one who actually put it out of the full list of who it is, or Z Schwarbach 24 is getting the credit for it as I read the tweet right now. It's in my column. So you can just click on X, retweet it, get yourself in that $200 draw. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, please go to X. And this show is streaming live over on X as well. If you could retweet that around, that would be very helpful for me, by the way. And it gets you in that draw again for the $200. Here are the names that fit the winner trend coming into it this year. And you have to remember, it's not actually the full winning trend because Scheffler won last year and blew up every trend. So there's that too. Trends tend to end sometimes. Rye, Ludwig, Henley, Hideki, Lowry, Day, Straka, Connors, Bez, Im, Spieth, and Nick Taylor are the ones who fit the trends.
Yeah, so tons of golfers, lots of really good golfers, and like you said, win here. And you just gave me a one-liner, so thank you. You can't spell trend without end. Thank you. Mic drop. It's done. The trends, they always end. It doesn't matter. And if someone wins from it, wow, one of the best golfers in the world won. The Players. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, great news on their front. So just to dig into Hideki a little bit, why I don't like him. He's lost on approach in each of the 2 previous weeks, 3 of the past 4. He's lost on the greens now in 4 of his past 5, and he's lost off the tee in 4 of his past 5. But he has these top 25 finishes 3 in a row coming in. He gained 6 strokes around the green last week, 1 at the Genesis, 5 in Phoenix, and 4 at Pebble Beach. That's just a really hard number to keep up for. I know that he is one of the elite around the green players, but I don't want the best scrambler at this course. I do want a guy who can ball strike a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's I forget the stats wise, something I'll look more at too, just going through it. But I think that was kind of the one that stood out, right? Like you know this stuff better than I do, but like the around the green versus the putting stats here, what's the exact breakdown on that for both?
In terms of top 10 finishers in the field, the winner usually gains right around 0.8 strokes putting per round, whereas the around the green play is like 0.35. So combined short game is around 1. Like approach and driving really do lead the way this week for ball striking. And when you go and look at the guys who have won, outside of Cam Smith, who was, I think, 4th in approach the year that he won. And then he made he gave like 12 strokes putting. So you can always have your outlier up the other way that way too, that you're just usually wanting your Schefflers, basically.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I'm going with.
You can win this tournament without a great putting week.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. That's what stood out to me was like you go back to some of that stuff, and that's where when some people say certain guys that are just good ball strikers, like yeah, but they suck at this, It's but if they're hitting the greens this week, I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but if they are, that's where you see those guys start to show up and they just find their way across. And if they make the cut, anything can happen over the weekend. And then you talked about it earlier with the weather. It's not that we're targeting it going in, but just in general, anything could happen on Saturday the way it looks right now. So that would just change and shake things up a little bit where some of these value plays or higher odds guys, they'd be able to at least take a run at it, like you said, and then probably somebody from the top prevails, but just of note.
Yeah, I'm going to add a few guys to this. Like my guy, I might just roll the money forward on crazy Carl Phillips. By the way, last week, the bets that I gave out, big winners, by the way.
Yeah. Carl, man, that was awesome.
Phil,
and
Phil.
Yeah, the Phil top 5. What was it, top 5?
Top 5, 125 to 1.
Yeah, so nice. Yeah, he's dialing in for Augusta, man. He's getting ready. The Carl one, though, and I don't know if you saw that for this. Do you see for this week, like his junior players history and how good it is? And I know that's whatever. It's X amount of years ago, but he's basically in the same price range, more in, a DFS play for later, coming off drops to a lower price. We always talk about that. A winner dropping to a lower price. Good. And then some of that history just as an added fun narrative bonus, but also how good he's no stat tracking and stuff last week, but obviously played pretty good to get the job done and win. And then on top of it, he's in the same zone as like the Michael Kims, the Doug Gims, all those options. So think that he's an option to talk about later. The chat was already mentioning him earlier as well.
And just like Cam Smith lives at the course.
Got it all. We got everything we need.
There it is. Is there anyone from that middle range that you like? Because I might add one of these guys who most certainly will not win. Can I interest you in Aaron Rye down to 55 to 1 now?
God, this guy's getting all the steam everywhere this week. Even you're bringing him up now too. So,
oh no, I like when we did the show on Monday, he was 100 to 1. Now he's 55 to 1. So people have been smashing the Aaron Rye button.
Sure, when has that ever ended well? 2016 at the Scottish Open, maybe? Is that what we got? I don't know. I don't have love down there. I guess one guy I want to talk about later is Big Bobby Mack. I think he's interesting and usually have some interest in him in some of these bigger, stronger fields, tougher courses, things like that. So he's interesting, but I liked your Nick Taylor call. And that was, he's another guy that's down in that range, popular, but for the odds you got, very solid. And I made the comparison earlier and I said it yesterday too, but it is funny. Like, I get it, and all the love for Tommy Fleetwood always, but and it was bad how he lost in that playoff in Canada. But what's Nick Taylor won, like 3 times?
5 times now.
No, I mean in the last since that what he won the Canadian, he won the Waste Management, and then he just won something else, right?
He just won Sony earlier this year.
So I'm saying 3 times since the Fleetwood was gonna win, and it's like no, actually he's not. 67 or 87 foot eagle or whatever the hell that thing was. It's like that's the setup where it's like man. Nick Taylor to me is just fine. And so I like that bet that from down there. I don't have anybody in the middle.
I do like that. I like him more as a bet probably than a DraftKings play, honestly, because if he gets in the mix, I do feel like he can win and go toe to toe. We've just seen him close enough times, but I also am not oblivious to the fact that he might come 130th place too.
And he might get steamed up for DFS. A lot of people are starting to mention him now. So I think there is that as well. He stood out more to me yesterday, but I think when we get to that later on, there is other guys there. Rye is certainly picking up all the steam in DraftKings for when we get there later on. He's $200 less than Taylor, but I certainly think Taylor's picking up some steam as it goes along. And there's lots of other guys in that range that you can use.
Of the mid-range betting board, like some other names that did stick out were like Keegan's at 60, Wyndham Clark's at 65. You mentioned Bobby Mack. I like him. He's 75. Matt McNeely's 80. Like it was one bad round for him last week, and he's been pretty good so far this year. And he is a driving irons, and I mean you need his irons to be on, but then he can make all the putts. I don't hate Spieth. Michael Kim is down there. Like there's enough guys that I think you can cobble it together. And even I've been betting Pendrith now for like 3 weeks, and he's been absolutely terrible. But his ball striking continues to be really good, and he just can't putt, but he's been always able to putt at Sawgrass, and he sneakily does his best work at short courses. Cam Davis is the other one who's like that, where, man, this guy's a big bomber. And yes, he's won at Detroit. In fact, Pendrith also plays really well at Detroit, so I wonder if there's something where that's a long course, but it more correlates to shorter courses. But both those guys, Pete Dye, short courses, tend to bring their best games here. I probably like them more on DraftKings this week because no one is playing them, but they've piqued my interest.
Everyone you named is in the soft zone. You posted out the post on X, formerly known as Twitter, like you said yesterday, and it was, this 8K range has McNeely, Spieth, Pendrith, Bobby Mack, almost all the guys you mentioned there. So it is interesting when we get to that versus everybody loves Straka in both the betting market and on the DraftKings side of things. Straka's right there in between all of them, and everyone's just sort of planted their flag and said he's the guy. But I think you're right. And wouldn't it be so fitting for Mav McNeely to get his at the Players, where he represents the Players all the time and talk, we've got all the back end meetings and all that stuff that he goes to. So maybe this is Mav's spot at 8,900. And in the betting market, what do you say he was?
In the Mav is 85 to 1 right now.
There you go. So I like him. Bobby Mack, I guess, just saying a couple out there, that would be two long shots or mid-range, if you will, but they're almost 100 to 1. So I'm good with those guys.
Yeah, I might even just play them because there are certain books right now, be it Bet365 and Bet Rivers, that have the top 8 each ways. That might be a route that I go, that I lose the 85, take it down to 75, but play them with the top 8. And if one of them comes inside the top 8, it's a winning week anyway. And then you still have that upside of the other guys that you've bet plus their win equity too. Just basically play.
I like the each way more. Yeah, using it on those guys versus the top, right?
And they're more generous. The each ways are more generous in terms of payout at the Players and all of the majors versus a regular week. So I tend to think about it as a win and top 10 bet, but you don't get the top 10, you get the top 8. That's how I tend to do it. And the payout on the top 8 is like 2.5, 3x what an actual just betting the top 10 would be. So you're actually investing less money, even if it's just for the each way, in order for a bigger payout. That was the whole Phil thing last week. Like, if you bet him as the 500 to 1 each way, you got the 125 for top 5. If you would simply bet him top 5, he was only 45 to 1 or something.
It's insane. But yeah, definitely love that. And the 125 to 1, you were loving that on top of the Carl win. So that's huge.
Yeah, no, I withdrew the money as soon as possible
to play with.
I have as many bucks to play with this week in my account as I did going into last week. All of the money I won last week is already in my bank account. Had to get that off of there real quick, Tambo.
You didn't feel it. Yeah, you're supposed to go on a heater pack. You're supposed to be feeling it into this week and play free.
Listen, I am playing free this week. I'm just trying to be selective with what I want to do and just not burn through all the money. I mean, it's funny because we were talking about it on the show last week. I'm up big on DraftKings this year due to like one really big 20K hit. But I told you I was pretty big in the hole in betting. Now I'm up betting for the year.
That's the thing that you said. I love golf betting. It only takes the 1 week, and then you get it all back and more. And that's a huge week last week for you. So, and many others. There's lots of people out there you see posting their tickets, winning, having great weeks. So it's good to see right now, and we'll see if that can continue this week. I'm excited for this one.
It'd be nice to hit another winner and have another community win, because I love seeing those tickets come in. If you guys ever win off something off the show, send it to me. I get fired up for that. Just, I'm winning. I'm fired up. I'm happy for you guys and you're fired up. That's why I do love the betting. I mean, I love DraftKings as well and playing DFS and playing on Underdog, but the betting market's always just going to be my first love because we can all win together that way. But I do have ways that you guys can win out there. And Tambo, I can use your help spreading this around. I got 3 big giveaways this week. One is a $500 cash giveaway. If you smash the like and sub to this channel right now, Mayo Media Network on YouTube, and in the comment section, you give me your favorite DraftKings play below $6,000. So your favorite 5K guy that you want to play this week at the Players, you're in a draw for both $500 and a free year of Fantasy National. You can go to fantasynational.com/Mayo right now. Get yourself 20% off. And if you do it today and you get the monthly package, you get the 20% off and you get Players through the Masters, which is a really nice combo deal, and all of the tournaments in between. Obviously, that monthly will get you both of those right now. The other ways that you can get into that draw is subscribe on Apple Podcasts to the Pat Mayo Experience. Leave that 5-star review up there, and you can do the exact same thing on Spotify. You do all 3, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. You get 3 ballots into that draw. The other way to do it is head on over to X and retweet something. You retweet something, you're in a draw for $200. Easy stuff. Isn't that easy, Tambo?
You'd think. I have my own takes on that because it's funny. Everybody loves the free stuff. They all want to just, look at it and bookmark it and keep it, but they don't want to just absolute easiest thing in the world, which is free to click it through and help everybody out and support the creator content. So it's fun, but you're working on it. And every time you put out a contest, all of a sudden those retweets and reposts appear. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. So do not put it in don't put your favorite 5K guy in the live chat. If you're watching live, wait for the show to end, then put it in the comment section, because I will not be able to see the live chat going through it. So I will not see that, but sub to the channel while you're here, please. One and done. We almost hit it out of the park last week after our conversation. We landed on Morikawa.
I said I liked him more than Cantlay, and close, but no cigar, and right there in the mix. Still a lot of money for that one though, so we'll take it and roll it into this week. But what are you thinking for this week, knowing that we already had sort of a bit of this conversation up top?
So I have already used on the team that I select for this show when I submit that pick. I've used Scotty, Colin, and Ludwig so far this year, leaving Rory, Xander, Tommy, and I've used Hideki as well as the guys that we could potentially go to from the top. If you're just seeing like a clean slate, so in the race for the Mayo Cup, at fantasygolfchampionships.com, there is a charity contest and a major contest up there right now. If you go to fantasygolfchampionships.com, 68% have Scotty to use, 58% have Rory to use, 76% have Morikawa to use, 62% have Ludwig. Justin Thomas is at 52%, and 99% of people have Xander Schauffele. I still don't think that people are going to use him. I think that's our pick.
I don't either. I like Rory or Xander out of that bunch that you have, but Rory you can use. I mean, you can use both of them anywhere. I definitely agree with you though. Like that's the interesting thing is everyone, like a lot of people will say using Scotty in the same example. Scotty's 68, so now's a good time to use him because everyone has this guy. But it's the people that haven't used Scotty yet are going to use him right now. The people that haven't used Xander, even though he's 99, you're like, well, isn't a chunk of that going to get taken up? No, because people know that they can use him at the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, pretty much any course, and they want to just see him get healthier. So that's the argument for Xander. Did come second place here just last year. And then the Rory talk you already brought up earlier. That's what I hinted at off the top. So I think it's between those two for what that lineup has left. I don't really have interest with this big of a prize pool in risking it all for a Fleetwood Lowry type or anything like that. I really do like taking one of Rory or Xander.
I've actually started to come around to Lowry a little bit here. He has a pretty good player's track record. He has a good Pete Dye track record. He has a very bad track record of actually winning tournaments. I mean, I think the last time that he won was the Open at Portrush, the last time it was played there. And fun fact, it's being played there this year. So that's been a while since that happened. I think it was 2019 that Lowry won the Open Championship, somewhere around there. But he hits all of the trend lines. I like the bad weather on the weekend. He's an accurate player. He's a good win player. He's a good irons player. Just can he ever make enough putts? And we talked about putting not being that big of a difference. When you're actively putting yourself out of tournaments, it's difficult. That's some of the pushback I've seen on Justin Thomas this week, too. It's like, wow, the guy is so bad on the greens. And granted, he was very bad on the greens at Bay Hill. But in his 5 tournaments this year, he's gained strokes putting in 3 of them. He has not been as bad as he was last year putting.
Good until they're not, too, right? We always talk about this, but certainly, the chat. He won the Zurich with Rory. Don't forget that.
Yeah, totally. He ran down Martin Trainer and Ryan Brem in a playoff.
Yeah, that was wild. That was on the Full Swing piece as well. I'm still. You can roll him. I'm not personally interested because I just think like his best finish. Again, this has nothing to do with it, but like when all that great history, it still leads to what you said. And with the prize pool being the way it is, we want someone in the top 5, even if they're a follow piece. So it's just, he's 8, 13, 9. Like it's been the way for him. He's got the stats, all of that. It can change in an instance. We talk about it a ton, but I still prefer Rory or Xander to get the job done.
So we'll go with Xander as our official pick from the show. If you're always following along with us, that's who we're taking. And that is my second best team right now in the one and done. I have a team in 394th, a team in 713th, and one team in 2058th. Thanks to JJ Spawn for propping that one up. I like JJ Spawn this week, by the way. DraftKings wise, he's in that other like second dead zone. No one wants to use the 6K guys this week because there are 5K guys that are super popular.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. Definitely think it's an interesting spot for DFS when you're looking at roster construction.
Trying to think who I'll just throw in. I'll throw in Lowry as my other pick right now for the third team, but I'll amend that a little bit.
Who's on your first one? Sorry, I might have missed that.
I'm not giving away that one. That's the good one that I got. But I'm taking Xander as the show team, as the picks that we go through every week on this show. Underdog. I have an underdog play for you. Is there anyone in round 1 that you do like, just off the hop, like you think is a bit underrated?
No, I wouldn't have anybody for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to decipher sometimes. I do think not necessarily targeting that morning wave for like low scores, but I think like median scores are usually pretty good to go to. So here is what I have played. The official play of the Pat Mayo experience for Underdog. You use code Mayo, you get yourself that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Plus, you get a free pick for the Players Championship, which you can add on to this and double the odds instantly. We'll take this one up to 18-1 because, Tambo, there is a 60% boost in the lobby for a Players Championship entry that expires at 4 p.m. Eastern tonight. In case you were wondering about that, I'm going to throw the link into the chat right now, and I'll have this in the newsletter later on this evening, unless I cooked up two. The one we cooked up on the show last week was a winner. The one I put in the newsletter for Thursday was a winner. So hopefully we can ride that mo forward. But here's what I got cooking for you. Hideki Matsuyama, I talked about him already, higher than 70 strokes in round one. Jordan Spieth, lower than 70.5 strokes in round one. Nick Taylor, lower than 71 strokes. So we need Spieth and Taylor to shoot 2 under apiece. We need Hideki to shoot 1 under or worse for the day. Use your 60% boost, and you get 9.5 times your money on that.
Yeah, I guess you're targeting these morning guys, right?
Yeah, well, I want to be able to refire again in the afternoon.
That makes sense. Yeah, there you go. That's where I think that was my correlation. You might be refiring in the afternoon with some of those lowers just because, I don't know. I'm starting to look at it more now. We'll look at it when we build out, but I think like that's one interesting note is that it's a lot colder. Like they're going out in 55, 57 degrees in the morning, and then it's like 72 when it hits 1 o'clock. So that's, and the wind is the exact same. We saw this, didn't we see this just last week where it ended up being like a bit of a swing on the round one because of that? Like just temps alone was pretty solid. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I agree with you. I usually don't like, 55 is fine. And by the time 11 a.m., like when you take a look at we're seeing like 55 in the morning. That's at 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. So the very early guys out. These guys are out at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's going to be up into the 60s by then anyway. I'm not concerned about that. Last week, you saw a big swing. It was like a 20-degree swing between waves in terms of temperature. And the afternoon guys got to play in 10 mile per hour less sustained wind too. So it was cold and super windy in the morning. Then it was warmer and less windy in the afternoon. That was the split.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was looking at. So I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay, so we're going Hideki higher on strokes, Jordan Spieth lower on strokes, Nick Taylor lower on strokes. Use that 60% boost. Use code Mayo. If you use code Mayo and get that free pick as a first-time player right now at Underdog, like I said, if you use the boost along with it, it'll get you up to 18-1. I think it's not a bad payout. 100 pays almost 1,000 on this one because if you use the 60% boost, 100 is the most you can get down. So I'm pretty excited for that. And I'm pretty excited to talk about our DFS lineups here in a minute. But first, I need you all to smash the like button and listen to these ads. Daylight savings came into effect March 9th, and now is the perfect time to optimize your morning routine now that more sunlight is greeting you in the morning. How is AG1 helping you shake off any lingering morning grogginess and fully embrace those brighter mornings? How does AG1 and the taste of it set the tone for a longer, productive, more energized day? Well, it's easy. You get up in the morning and you take the Pat Mayo recipe. You put in about 3/4 of a cup of water, top it off with a little orange juice, then boom, scoop of AG1, shake that up. I even put some protein powder into it too if I'm lifting that day to make sure that I hit my protein needs along with all of the extra nutrients that I'm getting into my body. And boom, my gut feels great. I got a ton of energy and I'm ready to take on the day. When it comes to my health, I want something I can trust. And that's why I choose AG1. With science-backed ingredients and real benefits I can feel, AG1 makes it easy to support overall wellness every day. And that's why I've been partnering with AG1 for so long. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/mayo to get this offer. That's drinkag1/mayo to start your new year on a healthier note. Welcome to TGL presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. It's sharp and it's electric. 2 hours of hammer dropping, overtime force, and playoffs on the line golf with 24 of the best players from the PGA Tour. The playoffs are here Monday, March 17th. 1 seed LA versus 4 seed New York at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 and ESPN+. Then Tuesday, March 18th, 2-seed The Bay against 3-seed Atlanta at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN+. Tune in to catch all TGL playoff action. Keep up. It's golf. Coming back in, Pat Mayo Experience, DraftKings picks for the Players' Championship, Tambo on the line. You smash that like button right now. Okay, pals? Appreciate that. And if you go retweet this show or any of the players' content of mine on X, formerly known as Twitter, you get into a draw for $200. I'll give you the 5 seconds to go do that right now because that's all it takes. 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you to all you fantastic people who have just done that. If you want to get into the $500 draw, wait until the end of the show. Comment in the comment section after subbing to the Mayo Media on YouTube your favorite $5,000 play on DraftKings this week. And you can do the same thing on Apple and Spotify to get yourself more ballots into that draw. All right. Tambo, hit me with the chalk this week.
And I'm going to try it again. We're running it back. I'm going to start it off with the combo pack of Scotty Scheffler and Michael Kim to make it all work. And there's a couple versions of this, but I'll start with sort of the more balanced version. I think Morikawa does fall into some of these, but we'll leave him out for this one. Go Sepp Straka, who we already talked about, at 8,600. And then I'm going to put in the 3 popular 7K guys, and there's mixed variations, but I think for sure, running it down top to bottom, Corey Connors, Keegan Bradley, and Aaron Rai. That's where it lands at.
And leaves you 0 salary remaining too. I guess we need to have the discussion now. Do you want to go to the top with the chalk or the bottom with the chalk? Because I'm not going to dissuade anyone from playing Scotty. I don't think that I'm going to play him in my bigger builds because I'm not playing 150 lineups this week. And I'm going to have to pick my stands. And one of them is going to be not using Scheffler. I'm going to use Rory instead. And like, even if I don't end up betting Rory and I end up going with the other 2 guys that we talked about, that I do think that Rory objectively is a very good DraftKings play.
Yeah, me as well. And so I think that is part of, we can start at the top because it's everybody loves the Scotty talks, the things that are going when it comes to building out, depending on how many lineups they have. They have 20 max versus 150. Like you said, it does make a difference based on your portfolio and how you want to play it, but I do think that is the topic. Like someone was talking earlier, first of all, we were talking about betting Scotty Scheffler versus Rory, Xander, or Morikawa and getting the number. And I said, I would take those other 3. It's not my picks for the week. It's saying that that's my topic of discussion up here. I think it actually matters, though, Pat, what you do with Ludwig, Thomas, and Fleetwood, because while you can play those guys very easily you can go Scotty, Fleetwood, and make a lineup easily. But the point is more, what do you like? And if I want to play more guys up top, it's probably Scotty, Rory, Xander than it is the 10K version of that. And I was looking at some of them yesterday. I do think that every Scotty Sepp lineup is like I think it's a Justin Thomas or Fleetwood Rory, for example, or something like that. So you can make different variations by putting more of these guys in up top. But out of that 10K range and even plugging, I'm overlooking Matsuyama here, but plugging Fleetwood into it, would you rather Rory, Xander, Kawa, if you could only pick, versus JT, Ludwig, Fleetwood? What do you prefer?
I prefer the top end. So just in full disclosure, the 4 that I'm building around, unless this gets changed as we talk it through the show, because I am open to hearing your opinion because you're a career winner at this and I'm just some goober who clicks on names. I got Rory, Xander, Ludwig, and Thomas as the 4 that I'm building with out of the 10K. No Scheffler, no Colin, no Cantlay, no Hideki, no Tommy. Tommy, I can be talked back in. I like Tommy overall. I just don't want to bet him to win.
Right. We're not betting him to win.
No, we're playing.
That's what we're trying for earlier. If he wins, he wins. Good for him. It'll be literally his first ever PGA Tour win. So that'd be great for him and all the Tommy fans out there. And I'm a Tommy fan. I think he's great. When we talk about it, we have to be open-minded. We have to use our mind and not our heart always. And this is the case. Everybody loves Tommy Fleetwood. He's a great dude, but he hasn't won on the PGA Tour. So he's made it close. 9,800. I can play him because he's 9,800. But with the ownership creeping up around him, and then you've got some of my favorites in Sungjae, Berger, Matsuyama, guys around him for pivots to play in tournaments, I feel like this is the spot to do it, especially at this type of course. So I'm with you on most of the stuff. I guess I'm struggling more with like the Ludwig, Ludwig, JT, Colin Morikawa in that range where they're all so popular, and you've got Xander and Rory right above them who just have to get squeezed because most people are deciding Scheffler or dropping down to Morikawa and the dudes below him. So I really like McIlroy and Xander this week for large field tournaments.
And I like that as the start too. Just not even just Rory and a guy, Xander and a guy, Rory, Xander, start your team that way.
Yeah, you have almost 7K left when you do that. So you can get away with it. You don't even have to plug a Michael Kim or someone else like that in there. So
Well, I mean, it doesn't need to be Michael. Well, what do you do with Michael Kim? Like, love Michael Kim, friend of the show. I think he's going to be back on in like 2 weeks to discuss this big run that he's going on. I hope he wins this week. I really do. I bet him top 20 as well. So I'll get some cash off Michael Kim. There is no chance I'm using him on DraftKings this week. It's just not happening.
there you go. I think that's what you do. There's 88 guys down there, and obviously not all of them are playable, but or you know that you want to be involved with. But I would say there is 20 options down there. Somebody said it earlier. There's so many guys in the 5K range that are mispriced. There is a good topic of discussion around the 5K 6K range to have. But I will just say right out of the gate from that point and that standpoint, even if some people think like us and the bubble gets after it and fades them a little bit and says there's no way I play him, there's no way I play him, it's still going to be much higher than the other guys down in that range just based on optimizers, projections, stats, models, you name it. So if you love Michael Kim, play him and get different elsewhere. But yeah, that's the thought process I have, is what you're thinking. And I think when we build today, we should just avoid him at all costs just because. Just take a shot and see what happens.
Okay, so quick question. What do you think Scotty's ownership is going to be in the big GPP?
34, 35.
And what do you think Michael Kim's is going to be?
It's tough to say. 8 to 12.
Okay, so you don't think he's going to be like 15?
It's so hard these days, man, honestly. But yeah, it's a tough one to predict. In higher stakes, I definitely think he pops up big time, or smaller field stuff, single entry, things like that. But I think in the lottery with all the other options and the way these people do things now, it definitely could keep him in check of like an 8 to 12 where you could still get away with it.
Okay, but you do think the higher the stakes, the smaller the contest, the more he's going to be owned.
Yes, the way this season's gone, it hasn't fully worked out that way, but I definitely do see that. Yes.
Yeah, ownership is becoming more and more difficult to predict. So just even to circle back up to the top for a second, I put out the soft spots near the top. Here are the soft spots. Rory versus Morikawa, Scheffler, Ludwig, and Thomas is going to be a step below them. Xander's going to be even a step below Rory. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, and then you get into the 9K, like the lower 10s, like Cantlay through like $8,500. The only weird one that I'm seeing is like Hideki's going to be used, Tommy's going to be used, Lowry is going to be used. The only like weird outlier that I see is that I am seeing Berger being more owned than Henley, and I just cannot fathom that happening.
Yeah, that's not happening. I don't see that either. So I don't see that on my stuff. So I see Henley. When people go there, I would still see them going to Henley. But again, crazier things have happened. I currently see people on Henley, and maybe they get closer in number, like because of that, and more people tag on to Berger or whatever. But I don't see Matsuyama getting as much love either. So we'll see how it actually shakes out. He should get some, but I see Sungjae going overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
And then I see like nobody wants to play. These prices are insane, by the way. Like Clark, Burns, Finau, and Hovland. Those are nuts. Lowry will get some love, but the other guys can't get any ownership or not much.
Yeah, I got Sungjae at like 4%.
Yeah, they actually forgot about him to start the week. He wasn't even in the pricing.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, they left him out of the when they launched players pricing. We're like, oh, all right, it's finally out. We're like, wait, where's my boy Sungjae? He was not in there, but they left a soft spot for him at 9,700. They might have just forgot him because his price actually fit in with where there was a gap, and there usually isn't, like 99, 98 then it skipped 97. So sure, maybe he was supposed to be there and they just messed up, but he was forgotten.
Is Berger the most mispriced player of the week?
I don't think so. I think like, again, I don't know. I still have a problem with like the Clark, Burns, Finau stuff. And even the Hovland one, he's not, but I'm just saying even like Hovland's bounced back up now. Like we were playing him at way lower pricing in other stuff, even when what was he last week in the API in a signature event? I forget, but
he was a little bit lower, but there was no 5K range either. And the guys at the top didn't really move. Like what was Scheffler last week? 12-1?
Scheffler was 12 flat.
So
I guess Hovland was 83. So it's all kind of relative. Yeah. I thought it was a little bit different, but yeah, I'm fine with that. It's the
Berger part. The only reason I pointed out at $9,600 is just he feels like he should be $8,200.
He went the same as everybody else, though. Like Hovland went 83 to 9, and Berger went 85 to his number. It's not that far off. Wyndham Clark went from 8,000 up to, what is he now, 94?
Yeah. I mean, he's starting to round
Oh.
back into form. He was second here last year, and his odds are a little bit lower based on that. So that got factored in. It's just crazy to me to see. It's not like Henley was unpopular the past month anyway, and then he goes out and wins. I know the pricing came out before he won, but just putting all your cards on the table going into API, people would have told you Henley's a better play than Berger, and Henley's a better player than Berger. Like, why is Corey Connors or even Bobby Mack in the low 8s, but Berger is 96? It just seems really strange to me.
Yeah, I will say, like I said, it's funny doing these exercises, but like Berger and went up the same as everybody else did. Everyone went up slightly. The ones that you just said, funny enough, you named them both that sort of stayed exactly in the same spot. McIntyre was 8K last week. Connors was 7,800 last week. They basically just stay exactly where they are. Everybody else went up around them, right? Lowry 82 to 90. What is Lowry? 80 or 92? Sorry.
Lowry is $9,100.
91. So yeah, like almost everybody. Hovland went from 83 to 9. Berger went from 85 to 96. They're all kind of going up slightly. McIntyre and Connors basically stayed exactly where they were, even with the 5K range added, the changes made, all of that. So just little nuggets or tidbits to look at there. That is interesting to see. But yeah, we'll see how it actually shakes out this week. Berger, if no one's going to play him, I think is great at 9,600. I think it's fine. Him and Sung Jae squeezed right in there in the middle with Tommy Fleetwood, Lowry down below, and then all those guys up above. They definitely seem like they could make it happen this week.
I prefer Berger to Sung Jae. I think he'll be more owned than Sung Jae. I still prefer him to Sung Jae.
Yeah, I don't know why it's in the back of my head of like, again, you're always the best at remembering this stuff. Isn't there like a little bit of a like Wyndham ties, Sedgefield?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And doesn't Sung Jae crush there?
I don't think he's played there in a while. He has 3 top 10s there in 5 starts in his career.
No, so you're quick on it. So there you go. I don't know. That just stood out in my mind for some reason. But yeah, you're never gonna hear me talk bad about Sung Jae, not very often at least. So yeah, I like Sung Jae at 9,700 right there as a pivot option as well. But I like the Berger call, and I actually think Henley could keep Berger in check. We'll see if people go there. I think it's clearly Fleetwood, but then I also think with Hideki and Henley there, and then Lowry down below, and then all the love for Thomas, Oberg, Morikawa, and then obviously the guys at the top always get it. I think there's got to be some soft spots in here, like you mentioned, and that's probably those guys.
You think that Thomas comes in higher than Morikawa does?
No, I'm saying it starts at Thomas up there. I think it goes for me. It goes Morikawa, then it's a toss up between Thomas and Oberg because while Thomas may be what people like, people love Oberg. He's just a guy that gets the fan favorite love. He's great. He's a robot. Everything, the home course, all the stats and things that you mentioned. So he probably actually gets more just on that love, and they project very similar. So it's probably Morikawa, little bit of a gap, Oberg, Thomas, and they're very similar, but Oberg's more.
Do you think that Ludwig Oberg is secretly Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat, and he sucked all the powers out of fellow Scandinavian Victor Hovland?
I don't know. That's been a thing forever, though, of certain guys taking certain powers from other golfers and just using it in different ways. So maybe, but he's obviously very good. And when you go back to what we looked at that 1 week with the actual sickness, he turned it around pretty quickly from there, got a huge win. And now it's just leading into this at 10-2. Seems like a very fair price, and that's why people love him.
5Ks. Michael Kim, obviously going to be the highest owned one. What about Joel Damon at 51? How high do you think he gets up? Because obviously he was on my radar. I was not alone on the Joel Damon. He popped up on the Best Bet show. I bet him top 30 on that. And I think that's probably how I want to play him because I don't see anything substantially different about him. He's playing great golf right now, and he's 5,100. He makes every super lineup work. I just can't fathom him being on the winning lineup.
Right. That's how I look at it. And it's not even that people like, really, he's not even chalk. He's probably not. Maybe he comes in at like 5%. That's nothing. I'm just saying it's more of what do you see happening? Do you need that? How will that look? I guess probably a good time to interject and get your take. And then other people that didn't watch me talk about it yesterday, I do think it is interesting here, Pat, is nobody's playing anybody in the 6Ks, right?
Right.
Which we know. Right. And the reason nobody's playing in the 6Ks is a very valid reason. It's because there's guys in the 5Ks that are the same or better. But the thing about that is it doesn't necessarily matter as much if it's getting us a unique roster construction. And if they're so similar, that means obviously the 6K guy could come through. Obviously, people just think, oh, but I need that $1,000. I don't think you necessarily do. because there's a lot of spots this week where $1,000 is, what could Henley beat Morikawa? Yes, he just did last week. $1,000 in the difference. Could Morikawa beat Rory? $1,000 in the difference. Yes, I'm not saying to leave the money. I'm just saying in the example there, where that $1,000, what does it do for you? It doesn't always buy you something better in this case. Those are just prices on a screen. So the point being, the 6K range also has golfers in it that you could see come through here, and it would just have you on a naturally different roster construction, kind of like the one we looked at off the top, where you said, like, if you go those two guys, Rory and Xander, it lands you at like 6,900. What if you plug in two 6K guys instead of 5K guys at all, and they end up being good, and it gets you to the build that you actually need while still having the two at the top that come through? That's kind of the point I'm looking at with the 6K, 5K range.
Can I give you my two favorite 6K guys?
Sure.
Poston
Hoagie
and Spawn.
Yeah. Well, I like them both.
Spawn
Definitely.
is
I'm always
someone, Spawn's been good here. I believe he was in, he was. I just watched it back. He was inside the top 10 going into the final round line. He shot 78 in the final round and just blew himself up. But he was right there.
Yeah. I'm good with Spawn. I've interested in both of those options, Poston and Spawn. And I think, again, you could start a lineup if you, again, not to build it out, but if you were back to your original point on Rory Xander, that you think you could get away with that and do it. Obviously, you can get away with anything with the pricing this week, but just saying like that's what that looks like. You still have almost 7K left for the final two spots. So it's one more 6K, or it's pick your 5K and move up, or you just play one of Rory or Xander, and you can get really balanced from there, because with just Rory and no Xander, with those two 6K guys, you now have 8,300. You got the average 8,333. You got 8,300.
So let's go.
That's kind of,
let's go. Rory, Xander, Spawn, Poston. We'll plug all those guys in. There's two other. I mean, you mentioned Spawn. You mentioned Hoagie. I do kind of like Hoagie. McGreevy is sitting right in the middle of the sixes, who's playing some really good golf right now, and pretty accurate player as well. That I don't mind him at 66. But in this lineup, if I was to build out this way, I would drop into the fives and then go up and see what I got left and try to finagle it around that way. How about I give you some of the names in the 5K range that I like that are not the popular names that people keep bringing up?
sure.
We have, let's see, Joe Highsmith, $5,800. Nikolai Højgaard, $5,700. Adam Hadwin, $5,600. Victor Perez, Carl Phillips, Andrew Putnam, Seamus Power, Sam Ryder. Because I think the popular names are going to be Gim, Damon, Michael Kim, and Alex Smalley. Those four, I just think are going to be used substantially more than everyone else in the 5Ks.
Yeah, I guess one thing that stood out to me there is Seamus Power, who you said, and I was digging into this. I was doing a little bit of a deep dive before we hopped on today, just looking at it. So his results, he missed the cut at the Cognizant, but it was with a 69-72. Like, he literally just missed. But before that, people see it and it's kind of ugly. It's not ugly. Sorry, I shouldn't say this, but it's like, it's not good enough. It doesn't pop for them because it's a 24th, a 36th, and a 17th. But it was at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Phoenix Open, and the Genesis. Those are tough fields, man, and some of them tough courses. Those are spots that he came through, and at $5,500, he makes a lot work, and he's showed up at those versus some of the other guys that we're looking at down here and that are getting pumped up. Did a great job for them, and even last week counts. So, you give them credit for the API, but I'm saying some of the other ones are the Mexico Open, the what was the tournament that played like the Mexico Open, or worse? It played worse than Craig Ranch. What was the one we just complained about? Cognizant. Yeah, that's where Power didn't do well, and it was a 69-72. So I don't know. It's all how you look at it, but just little things that you brought up. There's a few guys in there that I like. Nikolai, who you brought up, could be good. Highsmith, he buried everybody last week, but he's still just 5,800. Could go back to him. So I think there's some definite options. Carl, who we brought up earlier, and some of his stuff. So yeah, I think there's any of those that you want to plug in here. It's kind of just, what does that make work? If we went with Power, it leaves you Bobby Mack money. I like that lineup. There you go.
Yeah, and the other two down there at $5,300 instead of using Smalley or Damon at those prices. I like both. Matty Schmidt, obviously, I bet him top 40. I bet him top German, plays well at Pete Dye. 2 top 20s coming in, albeit easy courses, but played really well in his debut here a year ago. I might throw him on his first-round leader as well. And then Jacob Bridgman, who pretty good the past 2 weeks. He's $5,300. He's come 34th, second at the Cognizant. He was 15th at API last week.
Yeah, I'm playing Bridgman this week too. If you plug Bridgman into this one, you get Taylor Pendrith.
I plugged Matty Schmidt into it. So yeah, it gives you the top end of Tom Kim, Pendrith, McIntyre, Siwoo, Day, and that area of guys.
You mentioned Pendrith earlier. I think he's certainly still interesting. So I'm fine leaving $100 on the table, plug him in or something.
Would it be worth taking Spawn down to like McGreevy and then accessing Straka, Zalatoris, Spieth? Because I think although Straka is going to be super chalky, obviously I like him. And maybe you just want to X his name out of the field. I don't think that's the worst idea in the world if you're playing multiple sets, knowing that he's going to be one of the 5 highest owned guys in this field. But I do think that he's going to be good. That if there was a way to use him, you always talk about how can you fit in these chalky guys into lineups and use them in different ways. I feel like this is most definitely a different way to use Straka.
Yes, that's the to Spawn down, plug in Straka. This is a true, it's not who you play, it's how you play him. Straka becomes your chalk versus the other potential high chalk pieces. You don't have Scotty, you don't have Morikawa, you don't have Oberg, you don't have JT, you don't have Fleetwood. You know what I mean? That's where you're saying, okay, whether you like him as in a vacuum or not, it's fine because you're using him in a completely different way. So it's not who you play, it's how you play. And we've got McGreevy, Bridgman, and Poston with Xander and Rory. And it still projects like only 15, 16, 7, somewhere in that range off the top projected lineup that we pulled up earlier. So, which is fine in golf, obviously.
So the lineup that I have in right now is Rory, Xander, Straka, Poston, Matty Schmidt, and McGreevy as my lineup. I'm going to enter that one right now. We can swing back to the top, and we have the Scheffler Morikawa lineups that we didn't quite walk through. So let's try to build that out and try to build a good Scheffler Morikawa lineup. Like you are committed. Let's say these are the 2 guys that I think are going to be 1 and 2 in this tournament. I'm going to build 50 lineups with these 2 as the start. How do we fill it out now the rest of the time to make it a little bit more palatable, at least for you and people out there, to make it a bit more unique, do you think? Like, it's not going to be Michael Kim, Nick Taylor.
Yeah, there's 2 ways this is probably going to go. It's you X out everybody from Straka and like the chalk from Straka and down. So no Straka, no Keegan, no Rye, no Michael Kim, none of those guys, because you've already got huge ownership in both these spots. And I actually think Morikawa is going to continue to pick up steam. We'll see, but it feels like just because it's just, it's kind of like Scotty or him, and then people are playing Scotty and him. So I think that makes sense. And we did the squeeze earlier with Rory Xander, but I will say, is there something interesting to just going one more chalk piece and then no chalk down low if you plugged in like a different way to play Fleetwood as your 3rd guy in? Because I don't think people feel comfortable with 3 5K guys, but you mentioned some down there before. Like you had Power, who's not chalk.
Bridgman, Power, and then you get back up to 61. You have Hoagie if you want to, or Eckroat, sorry.
Eckroat, I like that.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, Pat, because this still projects well. It's you do have 2 really chalk guys and then probably Fleetwood as the 3rd. Most people playing Fleetwood are going to have him as a 2nd guy in or in a balanced build. Having him as the 3rd guy in while still going to the low end, it does boost your upper end, but we have like 2% owned plays at the bottom, like Bridgman, Power, Eckroat. These guys just won't have ownership, right? So that's kind of where you can get away with it that way, and it actually projects better. It's only like 5 points off the original big projected lineup, but it's way different on ownership because you got big ownership on Scotty and Colin, pretty high ownership on Fleetwood, but not as much as them, and then almost nothing on Bridgman, Power, Eckroat. So that's another way to get different within that build.
Do you think that we see more? Do you think people will be uncomfortable using 2 5K guys in their lineup? Because I'm not at all, but that's me.
I don't think they'll be uncomfortable with using 2 5K guys, especially when one of them can be Michael Kim or even like Doug Gim or Damon or those guys. One of them is not going to feel like what it is in the sense of when people look at their build, they're not going to be afraid of that spot. It's just going to be that's a plug-in, and it's really like the second 5K guy they're adding becomes like the risky play, and then the other 4 plays are all very good, obviously at that point, because you've only spent 11 to 12,000, 10 to 12,000, depending on what you're looking at exactly.
So let's try to build a different version of a Rory lineup. So we'll start with Rory. We don't even have to start with Rory. Let's start with Ludwig to save us a little bit of money, and we'll start that way. Now this takes away a lot of win expectation from the top, and that's really the one good thing about the lineup that we just built. I already went over the longest winner at this tournament since it's moved to March has been 30-1. That was Cam Smith. Everyone else has been a bigger favorite than that, be it Rory, JT, or Scheffler both times that he ended up winning. And in that lineup that we just played, you just smashed in 3 guys under 30-1. So you give yourself more outs at the top and just pray your guys at the bottom end up making the cut. Or do you try it this way? Ludwig, let's say at the top, 10-2, and then I can kind of get into some of these other pocket plays down beneath. Like, I don't think we'll see a lot because you can go into the 5Ks and 6Ks so easily that people just will. That do you think that there's any leverage in building not necessarily a balanced lineup, but a lineup that more resembles what we'd play week to week?
It's hard to say. I guess the part that I loved about that was when you were talking about getting into these pocket plays. And I think this is a way to unlock it. If you go like Ludwig and you know what you're giving up for the win equity on top of him and Scotty, Rory, Xander, Kawa, etc., but he's a winner. It's Ludwig. So it's like you're saying he's your winner. Now it allows you to say, okay, if he's not quite that, let me make sure I bolster the made cut top 20 percentages and guys that can not only make the cut, but can find their way over the weekend. And then you can get into this. You could play 4 8K guys and a 5K. And it's a completely different way of using Ludwig and a 5K guy in general, because the only 8K guy that's really getting touched is Sepp Straka, and that's it.
So how about this for a lineup? Actually, I'm going to change Harman into Nick Taylor, actually. Actually, no, I mentioned Cam Davis. I'll use Cam Davis because I brought him up earlier. I do objectively like Nick Taylor more than Cam Davis. And then we can take J-Day out, and that gives us, $7,900, really? The lineup would be Ludwig, Spieth, who I do like and am playing, Cam Davis. Oh, that's why this didn't happen. Okay, let me try this again. Now I don't need to use Connors. I can use 8,500. That's I'll figure it out. Ludwig, Spieth, Bobby Mack, Siwoo, Cam Davis, Akshay. My lowest price guy is $7,000.
Siwoo got in here. Is Bobby Mack still in there with Siwoo? And what'd you leave on the table? 300?
300 on the table. So we could upgrade 300. Like you could theoretically turn Spieth into Lowry if you wanted to.
Yeah. This is the tricky, because we always talk about this in golf projections, this, that, and the other, but like this is 40 to 50 points off of those other lineups that we looked at. So you kind of, we went like way off the board where you might not have to go as much. That's kind of what this comes down to, but certainly a very unique roster construction going 10, 3 8s and 2 7s with none of the popular options pretty much at any spot outside of if Siwoo gets a little, but it would not matter because you have Davis, McIntyre, Bhatia, and Spieth.
Yeah, and there's a very easy way. Like you can drop Akshay, and what would probably happen to, I'm going to submit this lineup just because I don't care if it's 50.
You go Akshay to your boy Nick Taylor and still get away with it, but it's not going to get you much more.
No, it's not going to get you much more. Like the way to juice this up, I would guess, would be in terms of projections. If that's what we were looking at. You take Cam Davis down to Eckroat, let's say. And then you move Akshay up to 84, and then you get Pendrith in. What does that do for you?
So now we have Eckroat, McIntyre, Pendrith, Spieth, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're like 25 off instead, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. These other guys in the 5 and 6K range are still going to project well. They get assuming they definitely get the first 36 holes, assuming they stay healthy and get out there and they're good to roll. But then if they make the cut, they're getting the same holes over the weekend. It just depends on how those play with the high winds and all that stuff we see coming on Saturday. But just in general, this is already a little bit better. And that's what I was kind of hinting at earlier. If you go Ludwig with 4 8Ks, none of which are Straka, which you could put Straka into it, by the way. There's not many people playing Straka in a lineup with 3 other 8K guys. That's what we're looking at, the little pockets and concepts within them of going that route. So,
and even looking at this, do I really think that Pendrith is going to win? No, but I could see Ludwig, Spieth, Bobby Mack, or Siwoo winning this tournament.
Right. So if you had to pick, this is the way to look at it. Of Bobby Mack, Pendrith, Spieth, and Kim, drop one. Who are you dropping?
Pendrith.
Okay. So we take out Pendrith. And then, you drop 2. My bad, Pat. Drop 2.
Drop 2 of the 8Ks?
Yeah, you dropped Pendrith already. We got to drop 1 more.
Pendrith and Siwoo will drop out.
Okay, so now we have 8,300. Now it's like, okay, do you like Fleetwood 68? Do you like Hideki 67? Do you like Morikawa 61? You could stay out of, like, here's one. You can definitely get away with Morikawa in this or JT and still stay in the 6K range. Who do you like better between? Let me see. Who was at 65? Did you mention it? I guess the best way to do it would be to really boost it is Morikawa with Hoagie.
Morikawa with Hoagie, or we already have Eckroat in, I suppose. Just trying to see the other guys. How popular do you think Rose gets? Because I've just seen a lot of people talk about him. I don't know if anyone's actually going to use him.
I don't think a lot of people will be about him. They'll talk about him, though.
All right, so let's do that. Let's go Thomas Rose, $200 on the table.
Yeah. And now we're like 26 off the original or something like that. And it's fine. And you don't use any 5Ks, you don't use any 9Ks, and you don't use any of the big three, 11, 1 and up in Xander, Rory, Scheffler. So that's the example where I'd be, I'm good with it. You still have a popular Oberg, Thomas, somewhat popular plays, but they're not as popular as Scotty and Morikawa above them. You're not using Fleetwood and Straka. You're not using the Keegans, the Rise, and the others in the 7K range, and you're not going to the 5Ks. And it's not that far off on projections. So I mean, projections only are what they are anyway. I'm just saying in the generality of bringing this together, this is a really unique construction, still uses some chalk, and really has guys that you think could come through, right? You think McIntyre, Rose could grind through. Spieth, for sure. JT Oberg, popular. Eckroat is kind of the guy outside looking in, but we like him. So that would be an example. You could easily get to something like this and get away with it.
Do you think that there will be many quad buckets of Scheffler, Fleetwood, Straka, Michael Kim?
Yeah, I mean, at least 3 of the 4 for sure.
Then that would leave you with 6,400. That's why I'm trying to finagle like where the pricing goes. That maybe it's not. I do think that Michael Kim, it just ends up becoming. Do you want me to give you the case against Michael Kim this week?
I've got a couple, but yes, please.
Okay, well, you give me yours because I don't want to go full negative here because, like I said, I did bet him to come inside the top 20. I do think that he plays well this week, but I have reasons why he wouldn't play well.
Yeah, I think one of the things we have over on the site, shout out to our guy DGen, but DGen's notes, and this is a long-term sample, is courses with lots of water have not been super friendly to him, on top of the fact that, he's played at some of those events, again, like so much credit to last week and some of the others too, but there's been other courses in there. And then another thing that was brought up was a little bit about, I don't know if it's him being honest about it or saying it himself before, of not having all the shots in his bag, that you need to be able to go. That sounds bad. You need to be able to go both ways at the Players. So at Sawgrass, you got to be able to double up, and it doesn't sound like he can.
Yeah, well, he's just committed to hitting that draw, and he hits it so well right now. I mean, this was always a problem with Morikawa. I mean, that's also the case against Morikawa, too, if you really want it. Why hasn't he had any sustained success at Sawgrass over the years besides he's the prototypical player you would want for Sawgrass. Everything he does well fits with this course. But the dude can't hit a draw. He can only hit a cut.
So, yeah, that's my few thoughts. And then you add in ownership, you add in roster construction, you add in all these other reasons. Love the guy. I think he's amazing. He's a great follow. He's been on your show and been hilarious and really open, vulnerable, going through it. Like it's same thing we talked about with Tommy earlier. Tommy wins or Mike Kim crushes this week, I'm going to be happy for them. It won't be good for my lineups, but it's just in general, that thought process is part of it for sure when you're looking at these things.
Yeah, when we get to the Q&A, and I'm doing another Q&A tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a pure Q&A, and then DGen's on directly after me over at the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. You should sub to both of those right now. I think it's a bit disingenuous. I mean, maybe it's not, intentionally disingenuous, but to say that Michael Kim plays very poorly at places with a lot of water. Michael Kim tended to play pretty poorly everywhere before this year.
It's exactly true. Yeah, that's why it's always the thing. It's just like you said, you tie it in with everything else. This course particularly, some of the other stuff. I don't know. Like in general, he's just playing so good right now. And even at some of those tracks, you go back and look now, it's like Genesis, Phoenix, kind of that's the thing with him. But you just have to know it's, the DFS side of things is a 5K golfer that, again, higher stakes and stuff. I think people just land there and don't worry about that stuff. And that's fine. Smaller fields, larger field. There's just so many options that can out him at that price. And that's, he could have a good week, but not a great week. And somebody still, you're still going to have lineups that just beat that. So a lot of people are going to take those chances in the larger fields.
I just built the most duped lineup of the week. It won't be because someone will just optimize some sort of lineup that works out well. Tell me how this one rates out. Okay.
What do we got here? Scotty,
Tommy, Straka.
Yeah.
Kim, Gim, Nick Taylor. $0 left on the table.
Yeah. Kim, and Nick Taylor 73. Yeah, so it's 2 points off. That's the other variations of what we talked about earlier when we built it with Scotty, then Sepp, and we brought up Gim to something else or whatever, and Nick Taylor down to Rye. These are the versions of it for sure.
I think this is. I mean, I would be very surprised if someone in the chat right now has not already built this lineup.
Oh, this lineup's out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, looks great.
Yeah, on paper, this should do well, but that's the whole thing, and this is the players every year. Remember what you told me last week, Pat? remind me when I'm building. I know you're just building this for the fun and just showing it off, but like you said last week, remind me when I'm doing this. Everybody that I think is great to fade them because it's not going to work out, and it never does. And that's this lineup. Looks amazing on paper going in, and it'll be a 3 of 6 or something. And everyone's like, "Whoa, what happened? Those were great plays." Well, that's what happened.
So let's give let's give this one the old nipple tweak, just 20 degrees or so. Let's pivot off of, we'll keep Scheffler in, and let's try to rebuild this lineup, staying in the same ranges, and see what lineup ends up being better. The one that's very obviously the better lineup, or what can we do now? So we'll take Fleetwood out. Who do we turn Fleetwood into? Sungjae, who I think is going to suck, so might as well use him.
Yes, correct. Good start.
Okay, so take Straka and turn him into Tom Kim, Zalatoris, Spieth, McNeely, one of those guys.
Let's go Zal.
Can we use McNeely?
Sure. Yeah. We'll have to move somebody else first, I'm saying. Take Mike Kim.
I mean, let's take Nick Taylor, and we'll turn Nick Taylor into, so Rye is right there. Did Lee Hodges withdraw?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he did. Lee Hodges out. Okay, don't use Lee Hodges. Let's turn Taylor into Poston.
Love it. I was going to say Spawn.
Yeah, I Spawn, Poston, whoever it is. I mean, I like both those guys. So maybe you know what? Let's reverse this. Let's turn Sepp let's turn Sepp into Zal, because I don't like Zal this week. So I said we're going to use the guys that I actually don't like. So Scheffler, Sungjae, Zalatoris. I like Poston, so let's not use them. Let's not use Poston. We can turn. I mean, I like Grazerman enough, I suppose, but I'm probably not going to get to him. So let's throw him in at $7,300. Any interest in your boy, Mr. Earbud, Cam Young?
No. I said this might be the first week that Carson Young is better than Cam Young, but I had an old post at the time. They said, don't say anything about it, but it doesn't matter because it's so old now. But do you remember when he hired Paul Tesori?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very short-lived, if you recall, right? And somebody close to Paul, like a lot of these people, like people on X and DMU and stuff, all these different things, like a lot of them live in that area for whatever reason. And so he had said that it was literally the Bryson DeChambeau situation, is that Cam Young and his dad don't listen to anybody. And so when Paul wanted to throw his tips in, they basically just fired his ass and said, no, thanks, we'll do it our way. And kind of said the Bryson DeChambeau thing of like, he'll be winning all these tournaments, or what was with Bryson? It was like, he'll be in what'd they say? Like a straitjacket or something like that. And now Bryson's running around the US Open with trophies and fans tapping it up and YouTube, and completely changed everything, versus Cam Young has completely just been crushed. It just hasn't been his thing. And who knows, maybe he finally comes around here, but I like it. I like the Grazerman call that you put in there with Zal, Sungjae, Scheffler, because then we can pick whoever we want down low. If it was Hoagie, you'd be able to get Hoagie and
but
the guy you liked it.
No, we got to use the guys that I don't like. That's the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, right. Who do you not like in the 5s or the lower 6s?
Well, I'm not playing Cantor, but I'm going to put in Cantor because he's the number one guy on the guys that Cust is rooting against this week at the Players Championship. So he's only $6,000. So let's throw him in. Then go down to 5,500 and hell, Svensson. Shout out Svensson, sponsored by our good friends at CoolBet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so that lineup is so interesting because, well, it's got Scotty in it. It has nobody else even near 10%, and a lot of guys at lower than that by far, and it still projects only like 16 off the one we just had.
So the whole thing is like Scheffler is the one really driving all of them. Like, how much higher is Scheffler projected than any other player?
I had it up here a second ago. Let me just scroll up.
Hey, how do you feel about the nickname Captain Phillips?
10 to 12. Why does it sound good?
Because like Captain Phillips, I'm the captain now. Look at me.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm the captain now.
That's the one. I knew that. So yeah, you're good on that. Let me see here. What was I trying to do? I think it's 12 points. I'm just double checking something. Scotty versus Rory. 14 right now, and actually Morikawa projects slightly better than Rory still. So that's part of what's driving it.
Okay, so everyone can start loading their questions into the chat right now. You and I are going to, if you had questions for Tambo, I would say get them out right now. I'm going to be doing just a pure Q&A a little bit later on, along with all of the final bets and everything I come up with this afternoon, now that we've talked this through and I've really got a sense of what's going on. This last lineup that we built, it's not a lineup that I want to play, but that's kind of the point. Can we get to a lineup of guys that I don't like? Because that usually works out better for me at the Players.
Well, who is it?
Go ahead.
Man, I was just gonna say there was one, the Bridgman thing. I know you liked him, but I just wanted to note this. I liked McNeely better than Zal when you were going through that. And if you go from Zal to McNeely, and from Svensson down to Bridgman, even though you like Bridgman, it doesn't quite work. But you like Matty Schmid more, it sounded like. But the Bridgman play there, that actually only projects like 10 points off the original, and it's fine. Like there's literally nothing wrong with that lineup. It's just you're going to be on different guys than others, and even though you're kind of in a similar build path, it doesn't really matter when all 5 of them are completely off the board. That's what kind of you see get there. When Scotty hits and the others don't, it's like, yeah, the other chalk failed. The guy that won it back-to-back that has a floor of 10th place won it. Yes. Surprise, surprise.
So what you're saying with this lineup is that what you gonna do, brother, when Bridgemania runs wild on you at Sawgrass? That's what you're saying.
Yes. I while they're loading the questions up, my brother's birthday party was this past weekend, and he wanted to have a Royal Rumble. Like everybody gets not an actual one, but we pick a randomized Royal Rumble, randomized where everybody gets a number. You get 2 numbers, and that's when they come into the ring. So you do it, and we randomized the 2001 is what came up for the Royal Rumble. I don't know if do you remember that by chance? You're a wrestling fan.
I mean, I was a wrestling fan up until 2002. So no, I do not remember the 2021 Royal Rumble.
Was just wild because you love wrestling. A lot of people who play DFS love wrestling. So while they're loading the questions, I'll give you the quick one. But it was Stone Cold Steve Austin wins. Kane managed to stay in there from like start to finish, and it was like The Rock, Stone Cold. It was an amazing ending. But Triple H came out and he wasn't even in the Royal Rumble, and he smashed Stone Cold before he even gets to the ring. He's all bloodied and beaten, and then he finally gets in the ring at the end and ends up winning it. Just wild stuff. I forgot how crazy wrestling actually used to be. And it's crazy also that it's still on and now even on Netflix and whatnot. Just seems like they've figured it out for ratings and for everything. Maybe the PGA Tour can lean into that a little bit.
I like it. I think that's exactly what they should do. So load your questions in. You smash the like, and if you tweet this around right now or retweet it around on X, then you're getting that draw for $200. And the more you can do those retweets, the more ballots you get in that $200 draw. Sub to the channel if you do want to ask a question in the live chat right now too. Here we are. Favorite 5K. This guy's saying his favorite 5K guy. Do not put it in the live chat. Put it in the comment section after the show. All right. Pat, what do you think about a stud round robin to miss the cut? I don't like to miss the cut. I think is not about, you know what? That's actually somewhat interesting. I feel like I've done that before and it just has never worked out, but I do think that there is some validity to that. But in my Monday post, I kind of showed the guys at the top have been playing really well here the past 3 years. Or you have your random, like there was the year that Rahm and Rory both missed the cut. I think that was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, but it's been, like 8 of 11 of the best guys or like highest priced DraftKings guys end up making the cut here now.
I feel like it was one that you got close on, though. I think this was like a 11 leg that you hit like 9 on and the other 2 could have hit or something like that. I feel like really recently that happened for you at this event.
Yes, but I do like to play the round robin to give myself those different combos. Like just as an example, I'll bring it up right now. And I think, it is, I got to make that Matty Schmidt bet for top 40. I forgot to press it. Go on that bet. So now we're in. Matty Schmidt top 40 plus 230. Let's go. To miss the cut, because I do think that, obviously all of the fun this week is in the miss the cut, just because you're going to get way better odds on that than anything else. So let's see here. Let's say we just take Ludwig, Hideki, Xander, Thomas, Jason Day, and we put those 6 together. Now that parlay pays. Why isn't? Oh, it's because I have Matty Schmidt top 40 still in there somehow. That pays 400 to 1, Tambo, if those 5 guys all miss the cut. However,
what were the names again? Yeah, what were the quick names again? It was Ludwig, Hideki, Jason Day.
Ludwig, Hideki, Jason Day, Xander, Justin Thomas.
Okay. Any more lower end guys?
No, just we'll throw those 5 in just as an example. And you can play the 2-leg parlays. And you can make those 10. So let's just put that in. I'll put it in for $1 just to see what it says. So $10 on the 2-leg. So you get each combination of those 2-leg parlays. And that $10 investment will still pay 12 to 1. Like if that ends up coming through, but that's just the 2 legs. That doesn't include the 5 legs. So I think that there's something to that this week. I don't know exactly what it is though, is the problem. Well, now that I've said it,
I like that type of stuff. I was thinking about just building a lineup because you think all these guys are going to miss the cut.
I bet two of these guys to win. I don't think that they're going to miss the cut. But again, do the opposite of what I'm saying, and you might win money at the players.
Yeah, I just built the winners. I got the lineup now. You can get JT, Ludwig, Hideki, Jason Day, and then there's a ton of different combinations. But Bridgman, Rose, or something like that, you could fit in. Those project really well, and nobody's on them, so it's good.
All right, so I just played that parlay for 411 to 1.
There you go.
You got to do that. I mean, if I'm bringing it up on the show, I can't not do it at this point, right? See, even the 4 parlay options aren't bad. Let's put $50 on that. Okay, now I'm just wasting money as we're talking. Let's get to the questions as we go through this. So more questions from the audience. In the 18 max, is it a fine strategy to put Fleetwood in 100% of your lineups, or is there a better strategy? So the question is it 100% Fleetwood? Is that the best possible strategy you can have, or is any other strategy good, Tambo?
There's lots of different strategies you can employ, but I do think that if you play lighter, play tighter. I've stood by that one for quite a while. And in 18 max, you got to know what you're doing. That's complete risk versus reward. If you love Fleetwood, get him in there. He's going to be higher owned. So if you put him in a lot, he has a good week, you're set. If he has a bad week, you don't. That's the no-brainer here, the most obvious thing ever. But I'm saying the reason I say that is because you have to know what you're doing going in. I think, Derek, you were in the Discord over at Ship It Nation talking about this last night all night. If you're in on Fleetwood, get in on him. And in 18 max, there's no problem locking in a guy that you like to make sure he's in all of your lineups and that you get a bunch of versions, a bunch of other guys around him. And I would just look to see what those versions look like when you're building out just 18.
Tony Finau or Shane Lowry this week? I think I might just stick with Lowry. The answer might actually be both, building a lineup that way. I wonder what that looks like. Because I don't mind Finau. I think Finau's fine. He had a bad final round at API, whatever. Happens to him a lot.
We can do the first ever live, flip it to Ship It. I got the Caribou over here. You want Shane Lowry or Finau to be the Caribou?
Lowry.
All right, Lowry's the Caribou. We'll flip it to Ship It because I don't take the 1v1 questions. And it was heads. So Finau is your answer there, Justin. Congrats.
So if we go in with Finau and Lowry, let's put in Spawn and Poston. See what that gives us. Probably not much.
Finau, Lowry, Spawn, Poston?
Yeah, Spawn, Poston, Lowry, Finau. And if we can get back, this is a lineup where I can use Nick Taylor fine. I don't really care that he's going to be highly owned. I still like him a lot. So throw him in. That gets us up to 10-8. You can almost get to Rory and Xander. You can put Morikawa at the top if you want.
Well, you could put Morikawa and leave money. Or Ludwig, you could go to
Ludwig and
Xander Akshay you had.
Oh, does Xander Akshay work?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I like that one.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's a nice projection, too, for overall.
Hot fire. Like, this is the sort of lineup we're just not going to see, I think.
Right.
Because everyone's gonna be like, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play JJ Spawn. I'll save $1,000 and play Doug Gim.
Right. And even in that version of it, like that was kind of the point is, okay, we had Xander in there. If Xander comes through, a bunch of Xander lineups are going to have 5K guys in them, even though it's not necessarily what you need. It's just the way the lineup kind of builds out. But because we went with 2 9K guys, it still kept us in the 6s. We didn't go with Xander and one of the big boys around him. We went with Xander and 2 9K that really aren't getting played that much. So yeah, I think that's a great way to build. And my point earlier of where the 6s, the 5s are better, just as good as the 5K, as the 5Ks or 6Ks down there, both, I'm saying, but you may need the 6Ks and not the 5s in the overall roster construction of how the week shakes out. And this just naturally puts you there.
Connors and Højgaard, disrespectful prices? I mean, he asked a question because he put a question mark onto the end of it. I think they're fine. I think they are where they should be.
Didn't even denote which hoe we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I like Nikolai more than Rasmus, even though Rasmus is having the better year, but they're down like near the 5s for a reason.
Yeah.
And Connors isn't a stud. Like Connors essentially had his first good week of the year last week.
So I don't think either are disrespectful. We'll see. They might be able to prove us wrong, but yeah, it doesn't seem like super disrespectful.
Yeah, like I'm using Nikolai Højgaard. I like him, but I think the price is right.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on your boy Rico Hoy? No, thank you this week. Not at the Players. I saw
5,200.
I saw him get eaten up by the Pete Dye Stadium course when I had money on him to win earlier this year. I'm going to stay away from him at Pete Dye courses until he can prove it to me a little bit.
Yeah,
like it was bad, man. It was so bad. And that's the anti Russell Henley case too. Is despite having the perfect skill set, much like Morikawa for the Players, why has he never played well at this tournament ever?
There has to be something to it, right? That's like you said. There's something that's not working, but it just could be also they bring the form over. Like if Morikawa and Henley play like they did last week, it's obviously going to play.
Oh, no, I completely agree that I'm not saying that Russell Henley cannot win and be really good this week, but it just seems striking to me that if you were to design, like circle some courses on like the Russell Henley calendar, oh yeah, he's going to be great at Heritage and Sony and Wyndham. But at this course in particular, just no, not happening.
Wasn't it? What was it like? When did the big prize pool come here? Was it 3 years ago when we all like circled Morikawa for it, and I think he missed the cut?
Yeah, I mean, this has always been the biggest prize pool, but then it got like super boosted all the way to the top.
Super boosted one, yeah, that's what I was talking. I think that's 3 years ago now. And I'm pretty sure he missed the cut. So,
how do you typically build out your betting card? Like, how do you typically spread out your weekly budget? I mean, I try to get everyone. There is no real rhyme or reason for it. Some weeks I want to feel like I want to bet more because I'm feeling it. Other weeks I want to scale back. Like you're seeing, like I have far less invested this week so far. Maybe I'll get there, but I typically try to win 7 to 8 times my money. And in full disclosure, like last week, I ended up winning way more money than I thought because I went pretty heavy on Phil. And just because I had a gut feeling about it. And I thought the odds were completely wrong on him, even though like, he was 500 to 1. He probably should have been 125 to 1. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to capitalize on that. And you know what the fun thing was, Tambo? I forgot that I had bet Phillips already on one book. So I bet him twice.
Oh, even better.
I know. It never works out that way, but it did. The last time that happened to me is when Bubba won the match play. I forgot I had bet him somewhere else. And then I bet him the second time. And then he won. I was like, this is fantastic news.
I've seen it enough times, obviously being around for a while, but I will say the funny part of it is usually, Pat, it is on long shots because people are like, they forget that they bet this 100 to 1 or 150 to 1 guy. And they're like, I got to go back and make sure I get that in. And they just didn't realize it versus if you had a big bet down on a Scheffler or a Rory or something like that, you would know that bet's in there. You would never really double down for the most part.
No, absolutely. It was the first bet that I made during the week. I was like, oh, that's that 80 to 1, that 60 to 1 is a really good number. I'm going to bet Phillips. Then I forgot about it. And then I saw an 80 to 1 like 2 days later. I was like, fuck, I haven't bet Phillips yet. I got to bet him. Got to get on that 80 right now. I'm seeing people betting him at 60 like idiots, as I had done previously in the week.
I have nowhere to be right now yet. Are you going to be able to rate these guys? Because that's a great one from Joe.
What's the question? I didn't see it.
Did you see rate unhealthiest? Kenny, Jeff, Cam, Cust. Would you be able to rate that?
No, that's just mean.
It's more habits.
I know I come across as the world's most gigantic asshole. I understand that, and I kind of am, but that is just objectively mean. I don't want to do that.
Isn't this just habits, though? Like Kenny is just posting on X last night about his 7,300 steps and down to 228 pounds. It's not about the weight or anything. I think it's who is the unhealthiest person. Kenny's healthier right now. So he's probably the number one for healthiest. I don't know between like Jeff. Cam seems like he just will do whatever. He's down for anything, right? So
yeah,
it'd be tough to rate.
Cam is probably the answer to this, in fairness. He's also the most unhealthy. He's also 10 years older than Cam is 15 years older than Cust. By the way, Cust and Cam on tomorrow, breaking down NFL.
See, told you we'd get a segue there somewhere. So we didn't fully rate it, but we think we got the first and the last. The other two in the middle are the, battling all the time for the craziest, the most psycho, etc. All these other factors. So you guys can figure out the rest. What else do we got?
Top debutante in this field. I didn't even see that.
I looked it up.
Who are the debutantes? Like, are there any good
I don't know them all, but I just looked at guys that I would think about for David English because he asked why. And I think it's just one of these 3 that are playing good golf, and I could see them find their way around here. You mentioned one of them earlier in Grazerman. I think he'd be interesting.
Grazerman.
And then one of the
Bridgman Highsmith, one of those 3.
Yes. Yep. And those other 2 guys are the same guy. So really just put them, they're the same dude. Highsmith and Bridgman. Nobody knows the difference.
Do you like Akshay as a pivot off of Aaron Rye this week? Sure do.
Yeah.
I like him. I like him as a pivot off Rye every week. Although you don't like, I know it might seem in your mind like you have to. You don't necessarily have to pivot from brown guy onto brown guy. That's not like a requirement in your DraftKings lineup. You can pivot off at anyone from Aaron Rye if you want to. You can pivot onto Denny.
Yeah, there's lots of guys in that range, but I do like taking a shot on a guy like Akshay, who we just know is talented, and whether or not it's boom bust. But if you get the boom, that's what you want. You don't want some middling option there. You want somebody that either comes through or doesn't, and then move on to the rest of your portfolio. It's not you're going to be locking Akshay into your lineup. So
is Denny a sneaky play? Seems like the ball striking has been a lot better this year. The approach play has been really good for each of the past 4 tournaments. And he kind of fits at what you were talking about. He had a very poor cognizance and he came 48th, but he's been doing most of his good work in like elevated events and strong fields, courses that you wouldn't expect him to play well on. I have a weird theory about Denny in a weird way. Like you see that his best finishes this year have come at Phoenix, Genesis, that was at Torrey Pines, and the Arnold Palmer Invitational. 3 really long courses. We've also seen him pop up in U.S. Opens before as well. I think Denny is one of the short players who plays well at longer courses, not short courses. He's sort of like the anti-Pendrith and Cam Davis.
yeah, I could see that for sure. And he's another guy that even if he gets a little bit of love in that range, it's not going to matter. It's going to be like 10, 12%. Like it's not going to be crazy versus, if I think people there would be more likely to land on Bradley, go down to Rye, go up to Connors, up to Straka in the 8Ks. Like I just think you can get away with some of these guys here in this range and just play them. So he would fall into that mix for me as well. I'm interested.
With the variant, should you just not play anyone over 25%, no matter who it is? I think that Scotty actually is an outlier to that. Like if you, I'm not playing any Scotty, so he's going to win. So you should probably play him at over 25%. But I do feel like he is a bit of an outlier of that circumstance.
The chat said Akshay is the tannest guy on tour. Azinger. Yeah, that's great. That's great. The thing for that, Nick, is that I don't like Morikawa and Scotty. Is that the only answer to the question? Like, I just don't see enough.
Sepp could get there.
25 is a big number on Sepp. So
it depends on how many people go dumpster diving into the low 6s and 5s, which I don't think that Sepp gets there, but you could see a world where there's so much public money into this contest being the first big PGA event of the year that people literally don't know that Michael Kim is good who don't watch golf. They're like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? Then they'll just pass by his name. And maybe Straka ends up fitting that build too, but I could just see a lot of people not wanting to go because this kind of goes into John's question of is building lineups with only 7K guys and above totally unique with how much talk there is of the 5 and 6K guys. I do think that you'll see more of those lineups, or at least 65 and above, rather than everyone just being like, I'm playing 2 5K guys. Let's roll.
Yeah, I think something like higher dollar, smaller field or single entry stuff like that too, Pat, where you could just, you're not really, instead of gambling on trying to get the 5K guys right, even if you're willing to move off of a popular Michael Kim or something like that, which seems easier for a lot of people sometimes, it's that you just nobody else may find the gem or the one down there in a smaller field. In the large field stuff, it's going to be found, right? Somebody is going to have it if, I don't know who's the guy down here. If Andrew Novak somehow shows up this week or something like that, or Chris Kirk or Seamus Power, who we talked about, those types of guys, there's going to be tons of lineups that still have them, even though they're super low owned. Overall, it's on the grand scheme of things. They'll still be out there. In a single entry, higher dollar, smaller field, you can get away with just not playing any of them and hope that not only did the popular ones not come through, but nobody has the other ones that do come through.
I'll tie these 2 questions together. Thoughts on Christoph Ventura? He might be worth a shot depending on his odds in the low Norwegian market versus Hovland, maybe to see if he comes through. And thoughts on Ryan Gerard at 55. I have no thoughts on these guys.
You're same.
I think that's it. I think those are. What percentage of lineups get all 6 players through the cut at the players on average? I can't remember if this is like a decent one or a really low one. It feels like it should be really low, but it might not be.
The chalk always busts, so I would assume it's very low, but I didn't look it up for this week just yet. So, but yeah, I think like that's what we talked about earlier, even back to Nick's question. If it's only Scotty and Morikawa, I'd be way more likely to click off of Morikawa and keep Scotty in there, and then take my chances on all the low-owned options with Scotty. You can do the exact same thing with Morikawa. It's just Morikawa fits almost every type of build, right? You can start with him. You can have him as your second guy in. You can do tons of different things with 5K, 6K. You can go more balanced. There's just so many ways to use him. Scotty kind of gets you into those lower owned options in the ranges that people are landing on often. So I kind of like leveraging it up that way.
I was just trying to build this out. Schmidt, Damon, Bridgman. If we put those three in, we have 11,000 left. You can go Rory, Xander, Morikawa.
Schmid, Damon, Bridgman.
Yeah. You leave 1,200 on the table because you can't quite get up to. Actually, you could go, let's see here. Rory, take out Morikawa, take out Xander. You go Rory, Scheffler, Cantlay.
Leave $100.
Now, you know what? We can get up to Thomas. I can take down Schmidt or Bridgman to someone who's just who's one other absolute goober down here. Grayson Sig.
Take Schmid down to Sig.
Or, it's either Bryce Garnett or, since Christoph Ventura was just mentioned in this chat, we'll go with Christoph Ventura. Schmidt, Damon, Ventura, Rory, Scotty, Justin Thomas.
Schmid, Damon, Ventura, Rory, Scotty, JT.
How badly or decently does that rate out projection-wise versus some of the other ones?
I'm almost there. It's not horrible. You can get away with it because you've got those three big projections plugged in at the top, but it's still like 10, 15 off.
Does anyone else think of Ace Ventura when hearing Ventura? I mean, I'm saying it like the landlord in Ace Ventura. So yes,
and he also hit a hole in one, or had a hole in one recently that they posted that everywhere.
How much love does Keegan get this week? I really don't know. Keegan's like on my short list of maybe guys to bet on in this mid-range.
The Ryder Cup stuff, man, he's really playing hard. But yeah, I think he'll get love for sure. I think in between Rye, Taylor, and Connors, I think it's Bradley for sure over the other guys in there, but you never know.
Yeah, Justin says 6 of 6 last year was around 8%. Thoughts on Spieth as a sneaky play? And if you've tuned in late, because I like Spieth as a sneaky play. I like Spieth this week.
Yep, he's in there. 88. When others aren't playing Spieth is often a good time to play Spieth. Shout out to my guy DGen again. That's one of his things, and it certainly worked out many times in the past. So it just depends what you.
2 top 10s in his past 3 starts since coming back from the wrist injury.
And feels like he hasn't been doing it. It almost feels Scotty-esque of like just not playing good, but still showing up. So
yeah, well, he's hitting fairways. And his approach game has been really good. And he's actually kind of putting again, which is what you want to see. Kent says he usually shoots for around 70% total ownership in his lineup. I don't really think about it in terms of total ownership because, I'm not as serious at doing this as someone like you are, but I just think about it as how we've talked to, like, who have I identified as the quote unquote popular options? And I don't want to go any more than like 2 of those guys in my lineup, 3 of those guys in my lineup. Like I definitely don't want to have 4 of the guys that I've deemed to be popular in their ranges. I can find someone else to play.
Yeah, and it was what I showed you earlier. Like if you're on Scotty Morikawa, then after that, it's going to get out of hand. But you don't have to, you don't have to say like, oh, add 1.2 here and 2.4 there, and I went to 70.2. I got to pull it down. Not saying you're doing that, but just in general, when I showed you this Kawa Fleetwood or whatever that lineup was that I gave the example of, while those 3 were very popular, you can round it out with all 2%ers and still have a pretty good lineup that's unique to the field. So I think there's just other ways to look at it and do it, but talk about all that stuff over with the Mastermind Project, all the stuff that I put up over at Shibit Nation. It's just, that's kind of the stuff that we look at.
How are the feels on Pavon and Saladina? I'm out. I actually like Victor Perez in a matchup bet over Mathieu Pavon as Le Frenchman. Maybe because he smokes the long cigarette. I do not know, but I think that he beats Mathieu Pavon this week. I actually like Victor Perez in the 5Ks. He was a part of that range that I went earlier.
Yeah, those guys are, we know who they are. I just found out they were in the field.
Pavon, Victor Perez and Pavon,
we know.
They're not bad players. It's just they get a lot of the internationals have been very disrespected versus their PGA counterparts for maybe potentially being more talented. That's one thing I have noticed going down the list this week. Yeah,
I definitely like Perez out of all the names mentioned there, and you brought him up, not the original point. So yeah, I'm with you on that, but the others, no interest.
Any attention for Jason Day at his price? Great irons, good putting, could come in hot, pass wind. I mean, I think he was even inside the top 10 last year, 2 years ago. I could see him missing the cut. I could see him inside the top 5. Like he's one of those swing guys. I think that I probably will end up using him a little bit.
Yeah, the price is good and it's a completely dead zone. So to your point, it's a bunch of guys like that you're like, some people are going to play him, but not everyone. That clearly tells you there's interest there and there's reasons why he could be a good option, but just nobody can get there because they're too busy playing the other guys at higher ownership around them. So those are the types of guys you want to think about, especially in your single entry stuff, where you can just get a pivot that's usually even lower owned when it comes to these single entries and stuff like that, if they're not really being used in the lottery. So that would make a ton of sense. I like that call.
Last question from the chat. Again, I'm going live again at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you got questions, save them for them. What is your guess on the percentage of lineups that will start Scotty, Michael Kim, and high stakes GPP, Tambo?
A lot. I
20,
think
20?
Yeah, I think that's a good number. If you see combos of that being, 8% or 10% in some of the lotteries sometimes. So I don't think there's anything wrong with doubling it. It's hard to say like higher stakes GPPs, there's a bunch. But if you're talking like the Mega Milli this week, the 44-44, I could see it being like 15 to 20% range.
Okay, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. As I mentioned, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight on Mayo Media Network. Make sure you're subbed. If you're subbed, you get into a draw for $500. As long as the moment the show ends, in the comment section, you put in your favorite 5K play on DraftKings for the week. Get you in that draw for $500. Doing the same thing and subscribing on Apple and Spotify get you three. The triumvirate, the troika, as they would say in Russia, about getting yourself in that draw for $500 and also a free year of fantasynational.com. And then if you go over to X and retweet anything players related from me, you'll get into a draw for $200 as well. Smash that like on the way out. James will be going live right after me at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel, Tambo. That is correct?
Yep, that's right.
And what else? You got more content coming on today?
I got no more today. You guys can check it out. The Ship It Nation YouTube station. Hoop and I recorded yesterday. We got all the content up bright and early for the players for the most part. We'll keep checking on throughout the day with my slate breakdown, the weather, anything final that we come up with for little tidbits along the way. And then you can check out shipitnation.com/mastermind. That's where you can go check it out. Use code MAYO, gets you 35% off. And that's just for everybody asking about the player pool creation, the pivots, the one-offs. How do you handle an 18 max? All of that is what's discussed. It's pure strategy content related to that. We just did the partnership with SaberSim over at Ship It Nation. So if you're looking to get everything in one place, you can get that set up as well.
Okay, and that will do it for me. At the PME is where I will release my final cheat sheet and article on Wednesday evening. Additionally, if you're subbed to the free newsletter, you can find that down in the description. You will get it sent directly to your inbox as well. Thank you all for watching. Good luck this week. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.